as of today, they are announcing that the person responsible, we on YouTube, so I can't talk the way I talk on Patreon, but the person responsible for unaliving Tupac has been arrested after 2 decades. I think we're heading towards 3 decades. So I literally just found out this information. I don't know what I found out maybe 3 hours ago, like many of us. And so I have yet to, really absorb the entire story to be able to do the deep diving and all of that. This is a story that is close to, many of us who grew up in the era of Tupac, and it was a shock that rang through the hip hop community, and really still to this day is like just a huge monumental moment in hip hop history, along with the unaliving of Biggie, which then occurred after this, right? I always get confused at who went first, but I think Biggie was after this. So anyway, we're going to get into what is publicly known right now regarding this story. And then I'm just going to show you what we have. And then we will revisit this. Trust me, we're just getting started with this. So we're going to see how this goes. And then we're going to be following this one, y'all. We're definitely going to be following this one. And I will say, I thought this day would never come. I honestly, after all these years, I honestly was like, whoever did it got away with it. It's unfortunate. But I also thought that the law enforcement were not even really caring and looking into this. But we find out from what I'm going to show you that they have been hard at work all these years, all these decades. So anyway, what they are saying regarding this case, a man who prosecutors said ordered the 1996 unaliving of rapper Tupac Shakur was arrested and charged for on Friday, today, in a long-awaited breakthrough in one of hip-hop's most enduring mysteries. They said Duane Keffe D Davis has long been known to investigators as one of the 4 suspects identified early in the investigation. He isn't the accused gunman, but was described as the group's ringleader by authorities on Friday at a news conference and in court. We're going to show that too. Duane Davis was the shot caller for this group of individuals that committed this crime, said the police homicide lieutenant, and he orchestrated and planned that what we now know was unfortunately carried out. So let's get into what we have in regards to video. This first clip I'm going to play is a newscast with the overview of the case.
Let's go to our Jeff Paul in our West Coast newsroom, where we have reports 27 years after it happened that an arrest has been made in connection with the murder of Tupac Shakur. Jeff.
Well, yeah, John, and this is a case not only the public has obsessed over for nearly 3 decades, but one investigators have clearly not forgotten about either. And according to reporting by the Associated Press, Las Vegas police have someone in custody who they say was somehow involved in the shooting death of hip-hop icon Tupac Shakur. Sources telling AP News, Duane Keffe D Davis was arrested early this morning, though the exact charge or charges he faces isn't known right now. His arrest happening just 2 months after Las Vegas police raided Davis's wife's home in Henderson, Nevada. Now, at the time, police were apparently looking for items concerning the murder of Tupac. Police reportedly seized computers, a cell phone, a hard drive, several .40 caliber bullets, tubs of photographs, and a copy of a Vibe magazine that featured Tupac. We should note Davis isn't a stranger to investigators when it comes to Tupac's murder. Davis wrote a tell-all memoir called Compton Street Legend. He admitted to being inside the Cadillac where the fatal shots were fired back in September of 1996. Davis has described himself as one of the last people alive to have witnessed the shooting of Tupac. The rapper was at the height of his career, having just released his 4th solo album called All Eyes on Me. It was in a BMW with Death Row Records founder Suge Knight at the time of the shooting. They were idling at a stoplight when a white Cadillac pulled up next to them and fired roughly 14 shots. Tupac was hit 4 times and died days later at just 25 years old. Now, we have reached out to Las Vegas PD, but haven't heard back just yet. John?
Yeah, it's my understanding that they'll have more information a little bit later on today. But up until now, it was believed that a fellow named Baby Lane Anderson, who was assaulted by Tupac Shakur's entourage that night that he was shot in Las Vegas, was the prime suspect in the killing. That had been reported in the Los Angeles Times. It's interesting that now the spotlight turns toward this new suspect, Keffe D.
Yeah, and according to AP's reporting, this is a person who was somehow involved, and according to his memoir, he was there at the time of the shooting and has said to have talked to investigators over the years. What exactly changed, what they found at his wife's house, we'll hopefully find out soon.
So that is the overview of the story, and then we're going to get into the actual press conference from the law officials. The crazy part, and I'm seeing some of y'all, I thought I had somebody in the chat, Kimmy, but maybe Kimmy is occupied. Let me see. I'm seeing some of y'all. Right. This is insane. Some of the things that to hear, right, Trakeisha, to hear that he had all of that evidence there, all of that stuff is it's really textbook for people who commit those sort of crimes. Like they say, those people who unalive people tend to either return to the scene of the crime, and or they tend to brag about the crime because they can't hold it in, especially when they've gotten away with it. And it's almost like they're bragging, or like a dog returning to their vomit. And this is a prime example of it again. Whereas he could have went radio silent and kept his mouth shut and not did interviews regarding, like they said, writing books and stuff and admitting that he was in the vehicle. If he could have just kept his mouth shut, chances are we wouldn't have this moment. I'm glad he didn't. I am very glad that he didn't. However, this is what they do now. Pink Pearls is asking, does he have cancer now? I don't know anything. If he does, this is news to me. I haven't been able, this is just a couple hours old, and I've put all of 30 minutes into this story so far. So maybe a full hour. But so I don't know. If you guys know that, confirm it in the chat. But whatever, you guys, well deserved. So that was the overview. So this next clip I'm going to play is the actual press conference from law enforcement, speaking of the charges and giving way more details. So here we go.
September 7th of 1996, as we all know, Tupac Shakur was an artist who was signed with Death Row Records. And that Death Row Records and its CEO, Marion Suge Knight, were closely affiliated with the Mob Piru criminal street gangs, and that they had an ongoing feud with the Southside Compton Crips. Duane Davis was the leader and shot caller of the Southside Compton Crips. And both of these gangs operated out of the Southern California area of Compton. On the night of September 7th of 1996, Tupac Shakur, along with Suge Knight, and members of their entourage, which include members of Mob Piru, came to Vegas to attend the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Members of the Southside Compton Crips, which included Duane Davis, along with his nephew Orlando Anderson, were also in attendance at the same event. As both were leaving the fight, members of Death Row Records spotted Orlando Anderson near an elevator bank inside the MGM. And at that time, they began to kick and punch him near that elevator bank. I will now show you hotel security footage, as many of you have already seen, related to this incident. And on this incident, you will see Tupac Shakur, who's wearing a shiny satiny shirt, along with Marion Suge Knight, who's a large man in a brown suit, punching and kicking Orlando Anderson. Lower your phone. Following this incident, you'll see hotel security intervene, and then they will leave the area of the fight. Little did anyone know that it is this incident right here that would ultimately lead to the retaliatory shooting and death of Tupac Shakur. Following this incident, Tupac and Suge Knight both left the MGM to make their way to a post-fight party, which was to occur at a local nightclub. At the same time, word had spread amongst members of the Southside Compton Crips of what had occurred inside the MGM. And then that's when Duane Davis began to devise a plan to obtain a firearm and retaliate against Suge Knight and Mr. Shakur for what occurred inside the hotel against Mr. Anderson. After Davis obtained a gun, he entered into a white Cadillac along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson. Based on our investigation, this is where we know they were seated. At some point in time, as they were in the white Cadillac, Mr. Davis took the gun that he had obtained and provided it to the passengers in the rear seat of the vehicle. As they were driving west on Flamingo Road near Koval, they had located the black BMW, which was driven by Suge Knight, and in the passenger seat was Tupac Shakur. And as they turned around, they pulled up near the passenger side of that vehicle and immediately began shooting at Mr. Knight and Mr. Shakur. Following that shooting, the white Cadillac fled the area southbound on Koval. And after our officers arrived on scene, Tupac was later transported to the University Medical Center, where he was treated medically and died approximately 6 days later on September 13th. My homicide section handled this investigation from its onset and for a short amount of time. And within a short amount of time, what we knew was that we were working a gang investigation where our victims, our witnesses, and our suspects were all from Southern California and not local to Las Vegas. Within the first few months of the investigation, our detectives knew most of the information I just briefed you on. However, we never had the necessary evidence to bring this case forward and present it for criminal charges. As time went on, this case had been reviewed multiple times by different investigators assigned to my section, but it wasn't until 2018 that this case was reinvigorated as additional information came to light related to this homicide. Specifically, Duane Davis's own admissions to his involvement in this homicide investigation that he provided to numerous different media outlets. In our section, we knew at this time that this was likely our last time to take a run at this case to successfully solve this case and bring forth a criminal charge. It was at that time that this case was assigned to Cliff Mogg, a detective within my homicide section. And over the last 5 years, my section worked closely, hand in hand with the Clark County District Attorney's Office and followed a systematic investigative plan over the last 5 years. We've conducted countless interviews and corroborated numerous facts that were not only consistent with the crime scene on the night of the incident, but also corroborated and were consistent with the sequence of events that night. This ultimately led to us procuring a search warrant which was executed at Mr. Davis's residence in Henderson, Nevada. And following the execution of that search warrant, in close coordination with the District Attorney's Office, this case was presented to the grand jury, which ultimately led to Davis being indicted on charges of murder.
So it actually cut off when on that newscast. But like I said, I was trying to pull this really quickly together for y'all because I wasn't intending to go live tonight originally. But this was breaking news. This was a must. We waited nearly 3 decades for this. So I do want to, during the week, come back and like revisit this and give a more full picture of everything going on in regards to this. But the poll question I put out here is, are you shocked that this is finally being solved? 79% of you are saying yes, and 20% of you are saying you are not surprised. I'm a part of that 79% because I honestly had given up all hope. I would say my hope maybe lasted 10 to 15 years. And then I was like, this ain't looking good. This is kind of over. And then when they did the movie, the one I asked, the other poll question was, did you watch or see the miniseries from a couple years ago regarding Tupac's life and basically his demise? I don't remember. Put in the chat if you know. I'm sure somebody remembers where was it? It was streaming on something, but I can't remember. Was it Hulu? Was it? It wasn't HBO, but I feel like it was a streaming platform, I think. But put on there where people can watch it. But I do recall, and it was like a mini series. I want to say it was a few episodes. What I can't 100% remember is if I actually completely watched the entire thing. If you haven't, I remember it was really good. I just can't remember. And that never means, for many of us, that doesn't mean we stop watching it because it wasn't good. Sometimes we just get busy and forget about shows. So I think that's what happened with it. But what the parts I do remember, it was really good. So I highly recommend it. I'm going to rewatch it. Thank you so much, Noel. So on Netflix, hopefully I'm pretty sure if it wasn't still there, I guarantee you it'll be there by this weekend. They putting that back up if it was ever taken down. So I will rewatch that. I'm going to just try to get myself refamiliarized with the story just because it's been so long. So we will be talking about this because this is a flash from the past. I see a few of the people are talking about their memories from it and everything. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead to the messages and then we're gonna get on out of here. I'm gonna do your comments and give a little commentary and then we're gonna head on out of here and we will catch up on this next week. But let's see.
Hey, popping like I'm supposed to. Watch out for the people that ain't close to. Speak a little something you could toast to. I ain't tryna hear about what you won't do.